Hi everyone, this is Will at Undu Media. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create a screen shake effect like this in Adobe Premiere Pro, and how to save it as a custom effect preset you can use in any of your video projects. Alrighty, here we are again in Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. I've already got some footage of a boxer hitting a heavy bag here in the timeline, and we'll be working in the Effects workspace today. If your layout doesn't look like this, you can get here by clicking on Effects at the top of the window. I'll go ahead and play a small section of this clip by clicking L on the keyboard so you can see what we're working with. I'm going to mute that audio for the time being. And what we're going to do here is add a couple screen shake effects, also known as camera shake effects or the earthquake effect, to a few of the bigger punches and kicks in this clip. You'll see this kind of shake effect used a lot on sports footage or music videos, but you can add it pretty much anywhere to give your scenes a little more oomph. So the first thing I'm going to do here, just to make my life a little easier, is add a couple markers on the timeline at a few of the bigger impacts in this clip. And to do that, I'll position the playhead right at the moment the foot hits the heavy bag here and type M on my keyboard, which will add a marker. Then I'll scrub forward and look for the next big hit, maybe this elbow here, and add another marker. And then maybe add one more near the end of the clip at this last kick here. So now I've got these green markers at each of these significant impacts, and I'll be able to bounce around in the timeline a little quicker. Next, I'm going to copy my video clip to a track above, and the easiest way to do that is to just select the clip, hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, and just drag it upwards. Now I'm not going to need all of this duplicated clip, just the sections where I'll be adding my screen shake effect. So I'm going to slice this up a little and trim out the parts I don't need. I'll click C on my keyboard to select the razor tool, or you could just click the little razor icon over here. And then back on my duplicated clip, I'll add cuts at each of the markers I created. And this shake effect will only last about a dozen frames, so I'll cut each of these sections down to around 20 frames for now. I can clean them up to their exact durations later. I'll hit V on my keyboard for the selection tool. Again, I could also click on the selection tool icon, and then select all of the sections of the clip that I won't be needing and click delete to get rid of them. So now I have three roughly 20 frame segments starting at each of the markers on the timeline where I want these screen shakes to occur. I'll select the first of those clips and then over in the Effect Controls panel set the opacity to 50%. And you won't see any difference here yet because at this point it's just two identical clips laid over top of each other, but that'll change in a second. Over in the Effects panel, I'm going to search for the Transform effect, which can also be found in Video Effects, Distort, Transform. I'll drag that effect onto my clip, and then up in the Effect Controls panel within Transform, I'll click the stopwatch beside Position to set a keyframe. Then using the right arrow on my keyboard, I'm going to move forward one frame, and with the horizontal position control, slide this clip a little over to the left. Just enough to create a bit of a ghosting effect over here. And of course, this is something you might want to play with a little bit, depending on your footage. The more you offset this clip, the more extreme your shake will be. But you don't want to overdo it if you want this to look realistic. After that, I'll move forward another frame, and this time move my clip to the right. And now we have that same ghosting effect in the opposite direction. So if I just bounce around here a little frame by frame, you'll see the result of those position changes. Now we just need to repeat that back and forth movement a few more times. I'll move forward a frame, select the previous two keyframes, click Ctrl-C on the keyboard to copy them, or right-click and select Copy, and then paste those two keyframes where the playhead now is by hitting Ctrl-V or right-clicking and choosing Paste. I'll keep moving down the timeline and paste those keyframes 3 more times. And then to finish this off, I'm going to add a final frame and click on Reset Parameter, which will reset this clip to its original position. And now you can see that shake effect starting to come together here. Now, one thing you might notice is that with these position changes, the clip on this track no longer fits perfectly in the frame as it moves around. On this frame, for example, we have a bit of space over here on the right. I'll hide the track below so you can see what I mean. When you play it at full speed, it's barely noticeable. But there's an easy fix for this, and it actually adds a little more impact to the effect. At the first frame, I'll click on the stopwatch beside scale to create a keyframe. Then I'll move forward one frame and scale this up. The bigger I make this, the more pronounced the effect will be. But I don't want this to look too cartoonish, so I'll scale it up just enough so that it fills the screen. Then I'll shuffle over to the second last keyframe here, click on the little diamond icon to add a keyframe, move to the last frame, and click Reset Parameter one more time. So now that clip will kind of pop towards us and fill out the frame throughout the entire effect. Now we could have done all this position and scale animation directly in the motion parameters for this clip, but we want to add a little motion blur here, and the transform effect will let us do that. We can uncheck Use Composition's Shutter Angle, and then dial up the value of the shutter angle. And you'll see that we've added a little motion blur to this clip. And again, depending on your footage, you may want to play around with this a bit. The higher the value, the greater the blur. But too much blur can actually end up looking a little muddy, and you'll lose some of that shaking effect. So for my clip, I'll set that to around 90. And of course, you can play around with all these keyframes. You could add a few more, change the spacing between them, whatever works for your footage. If my boxer was skipping rope instead of hitting the heavy bag here, I'd move this clip up and down rather than side to side. You can also play around with the opacity of this clip to change the intensity of the effect. The higher the opacity, the more of that top clip, the one bouncing around, will show through. I'm going to go with 60 here, and then I'll give this a quick play, and you can see what we have. An awesome little camera shake when she kicks that bag. So now I can just do a little cleanup on that clip. I don't need all these extra frames at the tail end. And wouldn't it be nice if I could apply this same shake effect elsewhere in my video without having to do all that keyframing work? Well, friends, through the miracle of Adobe Premiere Pro engineering, I can. And I'll show you two different ways to do that. I'll just move the playhead to the beginning of the clip with my shake effect, hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC and select both the opacity and transform effect, copy them, scoot over to the beginning of the next clip I want to apply this effect to, select that clip, click anywhere in the Effect Controls panel, and paste. And you'll see that both my transform keyframes and opacity settings have been copied over onto this clip. I could also save this effect as a custom preset so I can use it again later on or in another project. I'll undo these changes, go back to the beginning of my first clip, and just like before, I'll select both the transform effect and the opacity, right-click, and then this time choose Save Preset, which will pop open this dialog box. I can give this preset a name, and I'll call this My Screen Shake Effect. And then there are three options for type. Scale will try to adapt an effect to the size or duration of a clip. And my other two options are Anchor to In Point or Anchor to Out Point, which will just pin the effect exactly as saved to either of these points. So for this effect, I'm going to choose Anchor to In Point. I could also add a description here, which I'm going to skip for now. And if I click OK, up here in the Effects panel under Presets, there's my new effect preset. And just like any other effect, I can simply drag that effect over onto any clip I want. And now that clip has all the keyframes and opacity settings I saved with that preset. And I can make any adjustments I want to this set of effects without affecting the original preset. So since this elbow here is a little bit different than the kick earlier on, I'll change a few of these parameters just to vary things up a bit. And once I'm happy with those changes, I can just grab that effect preset again and drop it on my other clip. And if I wanted to change anything on this clip, I'd just come up to the Effect Controls panel and mess around with the opacity or keyframes. So now I've got three nifty little screen shakes happening in this scene, and a custom preset for that effect that I can use here or in any of my projects. All right, I'll back this up a bit and let you see the end result at full speed. If you found this video helpful, please give us a like or leave a comment below. And be sure to watch our next tutorial where I'll show you how to make scenes like this really pop by adding some awesome color distortion effects.